Assalamualaikum sejahtera. Ini agenda Awani. Saya Syafzan Johari dan malam ini kita akan berbincang mengenai pembentukan pemimpin masa depan melalui satu inisiatif yang dilaksanakan oleh Pejabat Pusuruhanjaya Tinggi Britain ke Malaysia. Oleh itu izinkan saya berbahasa Inggeris, and I would like to welcome the British High Commissioner to Malaysia, Her Excellency Victoria Treadell, or fondly known as Vicki.
That's right.
All right. Thank you for coming today. And today we'll talk about SGI. Basically, this is an initiative from your office engaging the youth in Malaysia, and not just ordinary youth, but the future leaders. Mm-hmm. So, how did you come about this idea? Because you, before you introduced this program SGI in Malaysia, you had introduced the same program in New Zealand.
That's right.
Right. So you're the one who actually mooted the idea.
Yes.
And what makes you basically? How did you came about this idea?
Well, perhaps if I explain what the acronym SGI stands for,
Yep.
it will partly answer your question. Mm-hmm. It stands for Successor Generation Initiative. Mm-hmm. So it's talking about the next generation in any given country. And for me, when I first developed the concept in New Zealand, it was about engaging with the next generation of that country, for whom the relationship with Britain needed to be established. So part of it is about future-proofing the relationship with any country that you're in. Mm-hmm. You know, the average policymaker in a given country is 50 plus. Mm-hmm. But if you take Malaysia, the average age of Malaysians is just below 30. Mm-hmm. If you take ASEAN, 50% of the ASEAN population is under 30. Mm-hmm. So as a voice, they represent a huge segment of the Malaysian and ASEAN community. So if you're building a relationship between two countries, you can't ignore the voice of a younger generation. And you also need to start establishing, for me, networks into that younger generation to engage them, to understand what their ideas are, how they see their own future. Mm-hmm. And actually to position the relationship, the partnership, the things where Britain has the same common interests with a younger generation of Malaysians.
Usually when you talk about bilateral relationship, it's only formally it's about government to government, government officials and government officials. But the strategic behind having this young generation, the successors in bilateral relationship, Malaysia and the UK?
Well, I would challenge the view that a bilateral relationship is just government to government. Mm-hmm. Actually, a relationship between two nations is about the relationship between the people of those nations. Mm-hmm. Of course, an important part in setting the policy agenda, the joint areas that we work on, is a government to government thing. Mm-hmm. But when we talk about the values in society that we share, you know, Malaysia at the moment is a majority Muslim country, and we're going through Ramadan. Mm-hmm. And the key principles of Ramadan are around community, family, and understanding that, reflecting about the values in society. Mm-hmm. And the core values, I think, between people are very much the same, the sense of justice, of fairness. These are very relevant issues for younger Malaysians, younger British people, and where I started in New Zealand, also for young New Zealanders. What are their opportunities? How do they engage? How do they inform the world that they want? And they are part of any relationship with a country. So as a British High Commission, we can spend all our time with an older generation, the existing people in positions of influence and power, but that will give you one perspective of a country. Right. It's important to have a much broader perspective and a much broader engagement with a country in order to have a genuinely deep and broad relationship. And the views of young people matter. You know, as we move towards the next election here, and it was an issue at our recent election, where was the youth vote going to go? And on big international agenda issues like climate change, in November we have the next big meeting taking place in Paris. Actually, the issues of the current generations of leaders, the decisions made now, are not going to be something the 50 plus are going to have to live with. It is the under 30s that are going to inherit that world. So the under 30s voice, the youth voice, is really important where climate change is concerned. So that's one example of something that is very relevant, very current, on which I think we need to see global action.
All right, let us understand how does the SGI operates. You started the first SGI meeting in Malaysia in February.
It was officially launched. We had one of our ministers, Hugo Swire, who's one of our foreign ministers, came over. So although we'd done a lot of preparatory work towards the end of last year, the opportunity of a minister coming, we launched the Successor Generation Initiative, SGI, at the campus in Nottingham University here. And we had your Higher Education Minister, Idris Jusso, here as well. Because, you know, education is another very important pillar of our relationship. When you ask a lot of young people what are the things that matter to them, usually education is amongst the top three. And then, you know, education and employability and getting employment and those sorts of opportunities.
Right, we have to take our first short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the relationship, Malaysia and the UK. How do you see through this initiative? What would be, how do you describe the relationships moving forward? Thank you. We're gonna take a short break. Come back later.
Romano, Urbane Attitude untuk lelaki yang berjaya. Kuasai segalanya. Romano, kuasai kehidupan.
Bisnes Awani Plus, 5 berita mingguan terbaik, pelbagai perspektif, ekonomi dan urus niaga pilihan.
Because of our depreciation in ringgit, the low market gold price actually doesn't translate into the low local prices.
We're not only addressing the households, we're trying to address the individuals in the households and all their viewing needs.
Yang baru nak mencuba bidang bioteknologi ni, boleh juga ambil produk kita, jenamakan sendiri, pasarkan sendiri.
Setiap Sabtu,
Bisnes Awani Plus
6.30 petang di Astro Awani.
Betul Abang Mael dengan Abang Sudin nak tolong Mawar?
Aku dah bertobat lah. Aku dengan Sudin sekarang dah sepakat yang kita orang nak perbetulkan balik keadaan. Cermin diri kau tu. Orang kena minta maaf tu tak? Cuba tenang Bob, sabar, ingat Allah.
Kalau kau tobat agama, apa hukum pasang berita?
Mael, cakaplah. Nanti kalau diorang desak nak tahu pasal hukum pasal berita macam mana? Alang-alang kalau orang tak suka kita ni jadi baik dia. Kita balas dendam pada diorang.
Jom berbuka bersama Mael dan Sudin. Sambut Ramadan 00.
Mana kita keluar dari pakatan bila mereka yang putuskan hubungan dengan DAP.
Awani 745 sentiasa membawakan anda berita-berita terkini, komprehensif, tak kira di mana anda berada.
Bagi saya kena usahakan semula pakatan sebab nak lawan Barisan Nasional mesti coalition.
Jabatan Mineral dan Geosains Sabah memaklumkan hujan berterusan akan lebih meningkatkan banjir lumpur seperti yang berlaku di Sungai Liwagu dan Mesilau.
Awani 745 di Astro Awani.
Bertemu lagi dalam agenda Awani. We're still with Vicki Treadell, the High Commissioner of Britain to Malaysia. And before we delve further in SGI initiative or the Successor Generation Initiative, I would like to know how do you see the current relationship of Malaysia and Britain?
I think the relationship is in very good shape. I think we've reached a point where we have re-engaged and we have refreshed the relationship, and it's one of partnership in the 21st century. Of course, we have a lot of history, but that history gives us a very solid foundation. And I think the job now is to build on that and to find what the common themes are going forward into this century. So on the economic relationship, two-way trade and investment is very important. The top 24 British companies in this country, for example, the value of their investment here is 86 billion ringgit. And, you know, so we're a significant contributor to the Malaysian economy. And when I look at other areas in terms of the export-led ambitions to drive Malaysia's economy, British companies who have manufacturing operations here represent 8 billion ringgit per annum of Malaysian exports. And when we look at talent and developing people, coming back to a younger generation, SGI, the learning and development budgets of developing the over 70,000 Malaysians that these few British companies alone account for is about 6 million ringgit a year. And so, you know, that is testimony to the strength of our relationship. And if we look at the education ties that I touched on in the first segment, there are something like 16,000 Malaysian students studying in the UK. And here, through the partnerships with some of your academic institutions, with British universities in the UK, here in Malaysia right now, 58,000 Malaysians are pursuing British degree courses. So, you know, that's a testimony of the strength of our relationship in that at an education level, at an economic level, we are deeply involved with Malaysia.
All right. Now, coming back to SGI, it was first launched in February in Malaysia. And what kind of topics? Because it is kind of... It is in a form of forum, where you have about 30 to 50 youth leaders. And what kind of topics that you discuss or debate? Can you explain more of that?
Well, what you've described is a sort of typical event that we might do, but if I can sort of start from a slightly different point, we're looking to build up a network of maybe between 200 and 500 potential young leaders from different walks of life, whether they are in the social sector, NGOs, academia, public, private sector, but people who are rising and have the potential to reach the most senior positions. But to make it interesting for them, why would they want to be part of an SGI network? To answer your question, we want to know what it is they are interested in. So I touched on climate change before. There are a lot of young Malaysians who deeply care about climate change. They're seeing the effects of extreme weather. So for some of our SGI network, we will organise things around debates, discussion, action on climate change. So for example, we had Sir David King visit us a couple of months ago. He's the British ambassador for climate change, works for my organisation. And we arranged an event with him with about 30 young people from across society in Malaysia to talk to him about the issues that matter to them and how they see the agenda on climate change being tackled, to give him ideas that he can take into the work of the British government and our foreign policy engagement on climate change. He found that really useful and very energizing. So, you know, those young people who got involved in that event with Sir David are actually informing what he is going to do towards COP21 in Paris. Equally, we're interested in young entrepreneurs. Coming back to our economic relationship, there might be issues around free trade, market access. Actually, how do you get funding? How do you raise capital? Where Britain can be part of that solution. So we will tailor events to meet the different segments of our SGI network, but partly for it to be a two-way thing and of value to the young people here in Malaysia. We're interested in their ideas. We're interested in their ideas about talking about values, the issues of justice.
So basically, this is really just to get to know them better. I mean, the successor generations better. To understand them, to listen to them, and to get to know what they feel and what they think about certain issues.
Yes, but to help deliver as well. So for those who are interested in climate change, working to get a real resolution in Paris is part of the equation. For young entrepreneurs, it's real connection with more senior business people. I want to mainstream the activities that we do with the younger generation Malaysians. So if we have a VIP, a visiting British government minister, and if, say, there is a group of young people who wants to talk about our foreign policy in the Middle East and Palestine, then why not? Because to inform our foreign policy, we need to hear from young Malaysians about how they see Britain's position in the world and what we're doing. So it's not just about getting to know younger people, of course that's part of it, but it's also trying to shape what we do so that it is in alignment with what younger people actually would like to see, but equally for us to inform those younger people of why Britain does things the way it does.
All right, we have to take another short break, and when we come back, how do you foresee SGI to move in, let's say, in the next 5 years? And can we expect SGI initiatives to not just to be introduced in New Zealand and Malaysia? Can it be introduced in some other parts of the region? We shall see. We'll talk more about that after this.
Bila bekerja di hadapan kamera ni dah menjadi satu tanggungjawab sosial kepada saya untuk memberi kesedaran kepada anda semua untuk membantu kanak-kanak yang kurang bernasib baik. Jadi bersama dengan saya, jom sama-sama kita bantu adik-adik yang memerlukan ini.
Salurkan sumbangan anda ke tabung jalinan budi di store Tesco hari ini. Lebih berkat bersama Tesco.
Koleksi baju Melayu Modern Plikat Pants Johan oleh Avin Chowki.
Dia memperkenalkan kain plikat ni kepada umum ketika Super Spontan 2013.
Cantik tak ai? Santai, sopan dan juga hip. Set juada Ramadan oleh Bangkok House bagi pelanggan yang ingin berbuka puasa bersama anak-anak yatim. Ramadan Enterprise, Ahad 6.30 petang hanya di Astro Awani. Salam Ramadan Al-Mubarak. 00 tiada noktah untuk kemaafan.
Action.
Sejarah akan tercipta.
Program-program Astro Ria kegemaran anda kini di dalam HD.
Cantik.
Gegar! Nikmati kualiti gambar sejelas kristal dan sistem bunyi 50-an 1.
Sekian, terima kasih.
Astro Ria HD saluran 1, 2, 3.
Saya mencadangkan Datuk Seri Najib pergi berjumpa Tun Mahathir.
It's a time for us to unite back. Let's solve the problem behind the closed door.
Buletin Awani 12.30 hari membawakan berita dan perkembangan usaha mengumpul bahan berita oleh wartawan berita Astro Awani.
Percepatkanlah landasan kereta api daripada Kuala Lumpur ke Gua Musang dapat mengadakan perkhidmatan sebelum Hari Raya.
Semenjak ada perkhidmatan kereta api, banyak menyulitkan keadaan di sini.
Welcome back to Agenda Awani, and we're still with Vicki Treadell, the High Commissioner, British High Commissioner to Malaysia. I'm so sorry. And Your Excellency, how do you foresee SGI going to be in the next 5 years?
I see it as part of what we do in Malaysia, as it is proving to be actually business as usual in New Zealand. And it was developed there. Actually, interesting, when we formally launched it, it was 3 years ago today. So this is actually the third anniversary. And I must give credit to my Deputy High Commissioner in New Zealand, a chap called Patrick Riley, who came up with the name Successor Generation Initiative, SGI. So my successor in New Zealand has continued it because it's just one of the channels of engagement that we have in New Zealand. Introducing it here, it should just be part of our business as usual going forward. It is something that I think colleagues elsewhere in the world are interested in. Some colleagues in other countries are doing something similar. But I do think we have a model that is more sophisticated and actually well thought through, and it can be applied and taken forward in other countries. So I'm hoping maybe, by establishing SGI in Malaysia, it could be something my colleagues in other ASEAN countries can introduce in their countries.
It doesn't have to be Commonwealth countries only. It could be...
No, it can be any countries. It doesn't have to be Commonwealth.
And how difficult would it be for a let's say a High Commission office, a British High Commission office in any country to start to introduce SGI?
I don't think it's difficult at all, because in every country there are youth membership groups, youth movements, you have the youth wings of political parties, you have organizations like UN Youth across the world. So you start by identifying existing networks and engaging with the young people who lead those networks and bringing them in. So it's a pretty straightforward thing to do. And if wherever we are in the world as Britain, in every British embassy, in non-Commonwealth countries and in every High Commission in Commonwealth countries, there is a real opportunity to broaden our engagement with each of those nations by engaging with younger people. Equally, engaging with women's networks. In every society, women are about 50% of the population as well. So actually, in parallel to SGI here in Malaysia, I have started a network with women and indeed have put together a women's advisory group. Cross-section of women from the youngest one is in her 20s, the oldest one is 70, from different professional backgrounds and experience. And I'm hoping too that with SGI we will put together a small advisory group that will work closely with my team at the High Commission to help shape the agenda, to come up with the ideas for the sorts of programs and initiatives that will really appeal to younger Malaysians.
Okay, let's say based on your program on the SGI program in February, what have you come about with as a result of the event?
Well, as I said, we have done specific events like the one I mentioned with Sir David King on climate change. We also brought together a group of young Malaysians to discuss the future of ASEAN and the sort of issues that matter to them. And we took that forward to the ASEAN Youth meeting that took place just before the last big ASEAN meeting here in Malaysia, in KL. So they're quite specific and they are very relevant to contemporary agenda issues.
When will be the next SGI program?
Well, we're right now working up ideas on what we do next. Now, apart from those specific sort of themes or subject focus, obviously there will be occasional events where it's just bringing the group together to network and perhaps to do more fun things as well. So, bringing different younger people together from all walks of life, from across the races here in Malaysia, to discuss issues like, connection between communities and actually where there is common purpose, and engaging with them as the British High Commission in how we can help deliver many of the ideas they will come up with.
We have 3 minutes more. So, specific, like let's say, vocational skills.
Yes.
What else? Would that be included in SGI?
Yes, I see. As I said before, education in the broader sense. It's not just about primary, secondary or tertiary education. Not everyone needs to go to university. There's a huge demand for skills and capability, things like apprenticeships. So working with the British companies who are here, trying to work with your Ministry of Education. In fact, a couple of weeks ago I had a meeting with Deputy Prime Minister to discuss the education blueprint and how Britain wants to be part of the delivery solution for that. Now, of course, a lot of this is aimed at just the demographic of the SGI network. People who are looking for opportunities to learn skills, vocational training and so forth. So we will be working with our British Council operation here, with the British universities who are here, with the British companies who are here, to see how we can actually support that agenda.
Looking at a more strategic point of view, let's say you manage to get some sort of insights of youth, from not just Malaysia, New Zealand and other, let's say if you have SGIs introduced in Singapore, India and so on and so forth, all this data, all this information will be collected. All right, and how would the Foreign Ministry of United Kingdom use this kind of information?
It'll inform our policy. And our policy will be more robust and better developed as a result of it. So I go back again to the example of Sir David King and engaging with 30 or so younger Malaysian people. The ideas they came up with in terms of policy development to address climate change are things he took back and he will be using to inform what he does on climate change negotiations, for example. So it really does have a delivery focus, some of this. And indeed, the sort of what we will pick up here, we will use to inform our own interaction with the Malaysian government or other organisations, or indeed our own organisation, on how best to get the sort of outcomes that we are seeking for Britain's interests, for Malaysia's interests, for our collective interests, where we have shared and common purpose.
Right. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for explaining SGI to us, and thank you for spending your time tonight. And that's all the time we have. Excellency Vicki Treadell, the High Commissioner of the British High Commissioner to Malaysia, talk about the Successors Generation Initiative, which was mooted by her Excellency herself a year ago in New Zealand, and it was launched in Malaysia in February 2015. That was the time we have. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.